Good afternoon. Today I'll continue to be talking about the coronavirus and the latest updates and news. So the first thing I'd like to talk about today is that while the number of deaths and infections in New York have risen again to a new record, the number of virus patients in the intensive care units or ICUs in New York have fell for the first time ever. So fewer coronavirus patients in New York State were in intensive care units on Friday, which is the first time the figure has fallen. Even though the drop is small, only 17 people, but however it provides an important data point indicating that the curve of the infection is flattening. So a week ago, the number of people in ICU were growing by 300 people per day, and I think this is a really, really nice turn for the New Yorkers, because this kind of seems that the curve might be already starting to flatten, and when it flattens, then well, the crisis maybe could be over in just a few months instead of doing so much more damage than it already needs to do, and that is just it. However, another question is that after New York, maybe there's going to be another New York somewhere in the country. So I think about some data is that 2/3 of all rural counties have already shown infections of the coronavirus. So this kind of shows how far the coronavirus has spread. And then there's also been worries about how rural counties don't have the good medical equipment which a big city such as New York does, and that could lead to another outbreak or another point of New York, which will then we will want to prevent that from ever happening and such. The second thing I'd like to talk about is that global supply chains have been disrupted, which could be leading to the shortages of key goods. So across North America, Europe, and elsewhere, factories are idled and workers are basically in lockdown. There's some places where there's so much goods that they're piling up, but somewhere else where container ships are still empty. So there's just been many disruptions in global trade, which will be more noticeable in the months to come as consumers hoard products and countries clamp down on exports of medical supplies and even foods. So basically what's happening here is that there are countries who's not going to export any food or medical supplies, and so this leads to other countries going into a shortage, because after all, they've all worked in trade, and now with these key supplies gone, then there's consumers. There's also added to that, consumers are buying so much, let's say toilet paper is a good example. You can see in shops that toilet paper is almost as gone they're basically gone, and somewhere else where there's a lot of toilet paper, but the supplies are going low, and really, really low in some areas, as there's global supply chain being disrupted and consumers hoarding products, which can lead to a really bad result of some people could be starving, and with the virus going on, and then they may have to go find a job to get money, and when that happens, then well, they could have a really good chance of getting sick, and this just turns into a bad loop, which is pretty hard to get out of when you're hungry and you have no money. And the third thing I'd like to talk about today is about antibody tests. So antibodies are produced by the response to infection, but these tests don't help diagnose early infections. They help detect how widely the virus has spread in the population, because they test for antibodies, and if some people have antibodies, then that means they have immunity to this virus, and maybe they can help things return to normal and they could go in the workforce and can actually work and keep the economy going. So if we know how many people are immune, it's really good. And with more people being immune to the virus, we can not only see how the virus is spread, but these people actually go out to work and help the world return to normal. But there has been a problem that while 25 to 50% of people who become infected never develop symptoms. These serological tests are plagued with issues. So in UK, for example, these tests are plagued with false negatives. So basically, they're not picking antibodies up when they present and indicating antibodies that there are when there are none. So this is just really, really serious because we need to have the right antibody tests to treat the right people, to have the right people working. We can't have a man who thought he was immune but actually wasn't and end up dying because of it. That's just really serious. And another point is that immunity of these viruses, of these respiratory viruses, persists anywhere from 1 to 8 years. So maybe you need to get an antibody test every year to make sure that you can be fully immune to the virus. That's it. Thank you for listening and have a good day.